News is coming out at the moment about three suspected spies in the UK who've been arrested. Russian spies. They've got a Bulgarian background. They've been in the UK for many years, and it's not clear immediately what they've done. Orlin Rusev, Biza Jambazov, Katrin Ivanova, living in Harrow and Great Yarmouth in Norfolk. And the issue, I think, is not so much the fact that they've been arrested, charged, or whatever, and that we've got a sort of full-scale spy scandal on our hands again, for the first time, really, since the height of the Cold War. But that if this is happening here, think what's happening across Russia. If Russia is investing so much energy in trying to persuade us of what is happening, infiltrating media, trolling websites and so on, just think of the pressure which is being placed on ordinary Russians to believe the message which is put out by the Kremlin. Because the Kremlin is dependent on that surge of popular support. If that surge of popular support goes, the Kremlin collapses. And for some bizarre, unimaginable reason, we think that it is more valuable, more important to be pumping Mr. Zelensky with weapons, which we should do, than to deal with the propaganda issue which is spreading across Russia and has been spreading across Russia since before the invasion of Ukraine. How do I know this? Because it was evident when I was living in Russia. It was evident. And it's only become more evident. The way the news channels, the way the media is controlled by the Kremlin. Now, why am I so certain about this? Because I was interviewed a few times for a Russian TV show, and I can't remember whether it was the first or the second time that it happened. I was suspicious that what I had said was not what was aired. But I didn't have any proof, and I didn't feel that my Russian was good enough to absolutely tie down the details. So they came to my house, oddly, in the UK, about 2 days or a night before I was due to travel to Russia. I hadn't told them I was on my way. And I was happy to give an interview. I can't remember specifically what it was about. It was something to do with the Conservative Party and to do with John Major, Cameron, Boris. I don't remember. Anyway, I said what I wanted to say, and before they started recording, and the camera person who came round, who I would regard as a friend, pleasant person, I asked him if I could record the session on my phone, and did, with his permission. So by the time I got to Russia, and it was screened the following day, I was actually in Moscow. And I was able to see what they screened of the interview that they'd done. I mean, some of these interviews I did were completely innocuous, but they were still interesting. There was one about a children's television program called Masha and the Bear, which had been criticised in the UK. And I thought the criticism was absurd and said so. But again, I'm not sure how that interview was edited. In this case, I know. Not only was the interview edited in a very strange sequence, it could have been done by reality TV producers, but my words had been completely changed, and I was dubbed with words that I had never said. And I had the original beside me. So I was able to compare what was on the screen with what I had actually said. And I went back to the person who had arranged the interview, who oddly turned out to be one of my students who had sat in on lectures that I had done about the ethics of journalism. So it was ironic. And that student was hugely embarrassed and arranged a meeting with the head of the studio and with the person who was presenting the program. I saw neither. I was left in a canteen to buy my own cup of coffee while they messed around in the television centre. I don't believe I saw anybody on that day. And I was taxied in and taxied out and left hanging around with various promises that I was going to meet the people in charge. I met no one. All that happened was they removed that particular program from their website, so you cannot find it. And they issued no apology. They issued no explanation. Now, if they're going to do that about something which is insignificant, how much more so are they going to do? Are they going to manipulate the truth when it is significant? How much more so? And I took this issue up. I eventually went to the BBC. The BBC told me that, oddly, not only had I been duped by this television programme, but John Curtis, Professor John Curtis, the psephologist who's wheeled out before any election, was also duped and dubbed with words he'd never said for the same programme. So they wrote an article about the two of us, and you can find it if you look up Professor John Curtis, Russian dubbing, or Tim Wilson, Russian dubbing. It will pop up immediately on the BBC reporting site. Look it up. And that is why I'm so absolutely convinced that we are behind the... we're behind. We're playing catch-up. We should have been onto this right at the beginning, because we will still have to deal with the fallout from this enormous Russian propaganda, and we think, oh, it's not affecting us. It is affecting us. This is what keeps Mr. Putin in power. And this is what keeps the war going. And this is why Mr. Zelensky feels it's so necessary to clean up corruption in his own country, because he can't stand up to corruption in Russia if his own country is so drenched in the same sort of corruption. Maybe I should say that again about Britain. How can we stand up to a censorship, to a distortion of facts, when we're doing something very similar in the Home Office? If words do not have the meaning that is straightforward, if we are twisting words to have another meaning, then we are doing the same sort of thing that Russia has been doing since the middle of since about 2012. Russia has been doing it routinely. And twisting words is the first stage. Dubbing people with what we think they should be saying. Encouraging people to say what we want them to say, rather like in reality TV. Why do you think I get on a high horse so much about reality TV? It's because of the voice of God. It's because people are persuaded to say what is already in the script. You know, why don't you try that again? Would you like to say so-and-so? And it seems innocuous, but actually People are being fed the lines that journalists want to be used on the television program. Maybe today we're just looking for the right person with the right quote. Tomorrow we can be massaging whatever somebody says. We can be dubbing. It's a short distance. And I saw Russia move from aggressive journalism to deceptive journalism. I saw it. I was involved with journalists. Yes, I was being a bit of an academic about it, but I was involved. And I think I was victimized by it. I don't regard myself particularly as a victim. I regard myself as testimony. And I will continue speaking out about this. And so the arrest of so-called Russian agents in the UK, it's the tip of the iceberg if they are active here and busy promoting their wares here. Just think what similar people are doing across Russia, and you can say, well, it's not my business. Yes, it is, because that's what keeps the war going. That is Putin's war machine, and that is partly what Prigozhin was funding.